Hawaii, an idyllic island in the Pacific Ocean that attracts millions of Americans every year. Hawaii has been an American state since 1959 and a territory since 1898. Many Americans know of the hula, surfing, and ukulele music, but few know the origins of the annexation of Hawaii. After years of conflict between Native Hawaiians and American businessmen, Queen Liliuokalani compromised and relinquished monarchical power, which led to the annexation of Hawaii by the United States and marked the beginning of U.S. imperialism. In 1810, King Kamehameha I unified the Hawaiian Islands. In 1826, the United States recognized the sovereignty of Hawaii. This was the beginning of the Kingdom of Hawaii. In 1840, King Kamehameha III created a constitution, and the Kingdom of Hawaii became a constitutional monarchy with executive, legislative, and judicial branches. As white settlers flooded Hawaii, there was increasing pressure to divide, lease, and sell the land. In 1848, the Great Mahele, enacted under Kamehameha III, divided land, with much of it for sale. The Mahele also allowed for foreigners to purchase land. This led to many white businessmen buying large parcels of land in Hawaii in order to farm sugarcane or pineapples. In 1874, after the death of King Lunalilu, David Kalakaua became king. He almost immediately headed a commission working to ratify the Reciprocity Treaty of 1875. The treaty allowed for free trade between the United States and Hawaii. In exchange for free trade, the United States wanted possession of Pearl Harbor, a major port. As countries around the world gained territory, it became necessary to have island fueling stations like Pearl Harbor. Hawaiian businessmen were more than happy to cede Pearl Harbor in order to make greater profits off of their sugarcane exportations, but Kalakaua was uncomfortable with the idea of parting with his ancestral land. The two parties were able to compromise, as the United States acquired Pearl Harbor and business in Hawaii boomed. Sugar plantations became wildly profitable. In 20 years, Hawaiian product exportation more than septupled. American involvement in Hawaiian affairs was greater than ever before. In 1887, King Kalakaua constructed the expensive Iolani Palace and was involved in a political scandal. In addition to this, he had tried without much success to diminish the power of the White Missionary Party. A small group of white businessmen called the Hawaiian League, or the Annexation Club, seized the opportunity to unite against the king in order to finally have political dominance. Sanford B. Dole, owner of a sugar plantation, organized a meeting of the Honolulu Rifles, a local militia secretly associated with the Hawaiian League. Lauren A. Thurston, a lawyer, Dole, and other businessmen drafted the Constitution of 1887. Since King Kalakaua only had a small and mostly decorative military force, he was forced into the signing the Constitution by threat of the militia. This was the first compromise forced upon a Hawaiian monarch. The threatening circumstances under which Kalakaua had signed the Constitution gave the name the Bayonet Constitution. The Bayonet Constitution stripped the monarch of most of his power, in addition to changing voting requirements. White foreign resident aliens gained the right to vote. In addition, citizens now had to have a higher income in order to vote. Many Native Hawaiians were very poor. The Bayonet Constitution abolished voting rights for 2/3 of the Hawaiian citizens. Understandably, Native Hawaiians were angered by the Bayonet Constitution. This led to a major conflict between the Hawaiians and the signers of the new constitution. Robert Wilcox, a revolutionary, plotted a rebellion that would force the king to abrogate the Bayonet Constitution. Wilcox and his revolutionaries, called red shirts because of their uniforms, stormed the Iolani Palace. Kalakaua, however, aware of the rebellion, was not in the palace. Instead, Wilcox and his red shirts met the Honolulu Rifles. After both parties began to fire, the Rifles threw dynamite into the barrack of the red shirts, resulting in 7 red shirt deaths. Wilcox surrendered, and the U.S. Marines were called in to keep a watchful eye over Hawaii. While tensions were still high between businessmen and Native Hawaiians, King Kalakaua died. Liliuokalani ascended the throne in 1891. With a new monarch on the throne, thousands of Hawaiians took the opportunity to petition for the abrogation of the Bayonet Constitution. Hearing the complaints of her citizens, Liliuokalani drafted the proposed Constitution of 1893. The proposed constitution conflicted with the interests of the businessmen, as they would lose control of the government, and foreign alien citizens would no longer be able to vote. In 1891, the United States government had passed the McKinley Act, which made sugar tariff-free. The sugar plantation owners had already lost their tariff-free business advantage and could not afford to lose their political power too. Objecting to the proposed abrogation to the Constitution, the Hawaiian League birthed the Committee of Safety, led by the wealthy Sanford Dole. On January 17th of 1893, the committee proclaimed that they were ending the monarchy. 1,500 members of the Honolulu Rifles militia staged a coup. As the Honolulu Rifles overthrew the Queen, the minister assigned to Hawaii, John L. Stevens, sent Marine and Naval forces on the USS Boston into Honolulu to assist the militia. Queen Liliuokalani understood that if she protested the overthrow of her kingdom, violence would break out in Hawaii. Liliuokalani made a compromise and yielded her power to Dole and the other businessmen. The wording of her protest, however, makes it clear that she assumed that she would be reinstated as monarch someday, but that day never came. Meanwhile, the Hawaiian businessmen created a provisional government. The first thing the new government did was travel to Washington, D.C. and propose the Treaty of Annexation. The treaty was submitted on February 15, 1893. Newly elected President Grover Cleveland had received the Queen's protest. Cleveland was suspicious of the new government and was opposed to annexation. President Cleveland withdrew the treaty and sent Congressman James Blount to Hawaii to investigate the coup. Blount found that Minister John Stevens had landed the Marines unauthorized and had supported the conspirators of the Hawaiian League. He also determined that the revolution only succeeded because of U.S. involvement. President Cleveland delivered Blount's report to Congress and determined that he would not again submit the Treaty of Annexation to the Senate for its consideration. He made clear his intent to restore the Kingdom of Hawaii. The former provisional government ignored the direction of the president and instead formed the Republic of Hawaii on July 4, 1864. Sanford Dole became president of the new nation. In 1895, the Republic of Hawaii imposed martial law. On January 16th, Queen Liliuokalani was arrested by the government for treason, and so were many of her supporters. While in prison, Liliuokalani compromised with the Republic of Hawaii, abdicating the throne formally in order to free her supporters. She was sentenced to 5 years of hard labor in prison at first, but it was reduced to 8 months of house arrest later. In 1897, when William McKinley, who favored annexation, finally became president, the Republic of Hawaii proposed another treaty of annexation for ratification by the Senate. The deposed Liliuokalani filed a protest against the proposed treaty. Liliuokalani called it a violation of international law to cede the islands to the United States. In addition, the Hawaiian Patriotic League organized a mass petition drive in order to gain signatures opposing the annexation of Hawaii. In total, there were more than 38,000 signatures on the petitions. Liliuokalani and delegates from the Hawaiian Patriotic League made plans to present the petition in front of the Senate in December of 1897. Chairman of the Senate Committee on Foreign Relations read the petition to the Senate. Liliuokalani and her associates continued to lobby, meeting with many senators. When the treaty made it to the Senate, far less than the 2/3 vote required for annexation was achieved, and the treaty was defeated. In 1898, the battleship Maine was sunken in Havana, Cuba. The United States declared war on Spain. As the fighting occurred in the Philippine Islands, the United States desperately needed a mid-Pacific fueling station and naval base. Hawaii seemed to be the only option. A joint resolution, which only requires half of Congress in favor in order to be passed, was proposed. Congress passed what was called the Newlands Resolution on July 6, 1898, annexing Hawaii. It was signed into law by President McKinley the next day. In 1898, Hawaii became one of the United States' first and one of their most important acquisitions during the Age of Imperialism. The experience provided a precedent for United States territorial acquisitions like Guam, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines. The United States was able to annex Hawaii because Queen Liliuokalani compromised and yielded her power after conflicts between white businessmen and native Hawaiians. Minor compromises of David Kalakaua and major compromises of Queen Liliuokalani as resolution to the conflicts between Hawaiians and U.S. businessmen not only allowed the United States to annex Hawaii, but also influenced U.S. international relations for years to come.